Hey. So after I departed on this journey, and really after reading Moby Duck, I was pretty nervous. There was so much content, and I was really confused on the overall points of the article, as well as the fact that it had so many different interpretations. But really, after crossing the threshold and diving in, I started to feel more comfortable with my approach to the article. It really wasn't easy finding a thesis. I had to break down the article into more of bite-sized, manageable pieces to narrow down to what I ended up being my thesis. That ended up being the negative impact and decline in usage of large-scale high-sea drift nets. It really was an interesting topic. I was able to find articles that supported my thesis, which I thought was going to be extremely difficult. And I was able to prove the deadly impact of the net usage and prove the significant decline in usage since the ban in 1992. I was able to use the Nicolay library, but I also had to go outside of that because I wasn't able to find a lot of current information. Specifically because it was a hot topic in the 90s and the early 2000s, but it really did start to fizzle out after that. So, to find that more current information, I reached out to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, which did have more current and more relevant topics and statistics. But I'm sure you're wondering how I got from this Moby Duck article to these drift nets. And really that comes down to Hone and Ebsmeyer and their thought of the sea nets as almost a nostalgia. Even though they were still being used, they did think of them in that regard. Ebsmeyer called them abandoned or called the abandoned nets ghost nets and killer drift net balls. And that's really what sparked my interest in this because of the way that Esmeyer talked about them and how deadly they were. Um, Overall, this class really was a whirlwind of information, ideas, and concepts, which surprisingly and probably intentionally ended up being just like Moby Duck. Both came together to form this piece of cohesive work. Um, and so, as I returned from this kind of intellectual adventure, I can really understand the underlying meaning of when Hone said, I've begun to notice currents everywhere, a universe of eddies and gyres, because I too was seeing currents everywhere, and they were really leading me to the streams of critical thinking. And it's not something that you do naturally, I don't think, until you're taught. Critical thinking is not a normal way of thinking. But until you're taught how to do it and understand what it is, you really don't think that way. But I think with the help of this class, I've been able to think that way in almost everything now, and I think it's been really helpful. It really has kind of changed the way I think and question things. Um, I really had gained so much along the way, more than I thought I would, and everything that I learned has really turned out to be a tool or a skill that I'll be able to continue to move forward with during my college experience. So, in the beginning, I wasn't really sure what the correlation could be between Moby Duck and the purpose of this course, but I certainly do now. Thanks.